to celebrate all things Anne Lister. And in our preparations for it, we've come across lesbians who are already fully immersed in the life of Anne Lister. And for the second interview, I'm really pleased to be joined by Christine Sanders, who's a lesbian poet who lives on a boat in West Yorkshire, and she is definitely immersed in all things Anne Lister.
I
So, hello,
surely am.
Christine.
Hello, hi, thank you. And thank you for having me here.
You're very welcome. So, can we start with when did your relationship with all things Anne Lister begin?
Well, they began quite suddenly, as I think they do often with analysts. But mine was in 2014. I'd moved from Wales to come up to Yorkshire to take my MA in poetry, creative writing at Manchester Writing School. And we were asked to write a dramatic monologue each week. You had to write in a particular style. And this particular week, it was writing a dramatic monologue, which is where you're writing one voice and that person is speaking. And I'd been teaching all week. I came home. I'd only just moved up to Yorkshire, so I didn't know where anywhere was apart from to the job and back. That's where I was at. And so, anyway, I'd got home and about 7 o'clock, I remember slumping in a chair thinking, right, I've got to do something. And I looked at my bookcase and I saw a copy of I Know My Own Heart, which is the first book written by Helena Whitbread on it's Anne's edited diaries. And I picked up the book, which incidentally I bought at one of the Sunday markets at Wit. And so I started reading. It was about 7 o'clock. And at 1 o'clock in the morning, I lifted my head. I had just read solidly. I was completely immersed. And I went to bed. And as I was like reading towards further on into this book, I was thinking, Halifax, isn't that near to where I am now? And I checked, and I was near to Halifax. And so the next morning, I was up early and off to find Shibden Hall. And I didn't have a sat nav. And I had to keep stopping at garages and saying, where's Shibden? And I got there. And I was the first person. It was about 9 o'clock, 9:30. I got there, and I went in, and the house was empty apart from the guide. There was two women that were guides there, and I was just going round. The house was empty. There was one other person I saw the whole day, and I was literally sliding down walls, stroking floorboards, because I had just been completely thrown into Anne's world. And then here I was in her home, and, walls and floorboards which she walked on. So I was completely blown away. Straight away, it was like, boof.
So
And,
that
and
that
then
that I was just going to say that's like an instant love affair going on right there.
Paula, that's exactly how it was. I was blown away. Absolutely, yes, it is, isn't it?
Mm.
And anyway, at the end of the day, I'd been in the house pretty much the whole day, and I stood in where the shop was, which is now like where you go in. Now it's like the entrance part, but there it had the shop, and I stood there and thought I was very aware, very aware that I had to write Anne's entire love life. It was just, and not just bits of it, not just, oh, this one and that one, but not her because she wasn't so, important or long term. No, every single one. And that's what I did. That's what
I
I've
mean
done.
that sounds almost like a bit of an otherworldly experience, whether or not you were channeling Anne or whatever. It does sound like, and as a writer myself, I know that sometimes the voices do come to you. You think, well, what do I need to say now? So that's a remarkable beginning. How have you been involved ever since?
Um, and by the, I want to answer that and say absolutely yes, it felt like an otherworld experience. And when I've been writing and I've written the whole collection in dramatic monologues, I have literally read the area that I want to write about, and then I would sit and say, okay, now you tell
Come,
me.
come to
Come,
me. Yeah.
come, and start. And I would just literally start writing. I wouldn't write perfect poems or anything at that point, but I'd be just writing and hearing their thoughts and their ideas. And when I wrote the poem about when Mariana had to marry Charles Lawton, I was in tears,
Mm.
because she was just telling me about it. Anyway, so, but yes, definitely channeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So how did it go from there? How have you been involved since?
well, obviously, I've been writing the full length collection, but that is masses and masses that's gone on with about Anne Lister. I mean, in the Peace Hall in Halifax, there's a bronze life-size statue of Anne, and but there's also we have in it's at the end of March, beginning of April. Anne's birthday is the 3rd of April. And every year for the past 5 years, we've just done the fifth one, we've had ALBW, which is Anne Lister Birthday Week. And then it was joined 2 years ago by ALF, which is Anne Lister Festival. So they work alongside each other and with each other. Anne Lister Birthday Week is set up by Pat Esgate. She's an American. She had come to Yorkshire, to the Minster, the Halifax Minster. This is a true story. She didn't realise it. She was sat in Anne Lister's pew, and it was at a memorial weekend or event, and she was sat in Anne Lister's pew, and Pat said she then stood up and said, I have to do something. She said, and she had no idea she was in Anne's pew. And she said she just knew she had to create an event which brought women, primarily lesbians, but definitely Anne Lister devotees, to come from all over the world. And she created amazing events for the first 3 years with my work. I was doing performances with a team. So we would do like a whole section of maybe 16 poems. So there'd be Anne Lister and then all the different women. And they were like a 40-minute production, and they were great. And I've been very involved with ALBW. With Anne Lister Festival, I've done writing workshops, did 2 workshops this year. And after all that, we still meet with the Anne Lister Memorial in September 22nd, which is when Anne died. But women from all over the world come. Like, women come from Australia, Canada, loads from Canada and America. And last year there were women from 33 different countries. I mean, that is quite something, but
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
a lot of pulling power after all these years, isn't it?
it's amazing. It's amazing, um, and how, I mean, when Helena published her book, I Know My Own Heart, she was the first one to bring Anne Lister into the public domain as a lesbian, because up until then, that side was hidden by Halifax society.
Yeah. Um, do the are there returnees? You know, are there women that you've personally seen? Oh, it's you again. You know that they make repeat journeys.
Absolutely. There's been friendships, relationships, marriages from that very first ALBW.
Yeah.
There have yeah, there's women that I meet like every year, and sometimes like with Pat and I we get on very well. And sometimes I'm surprised that I forget that she's not in the UK because I see her, like popping up every year,
Yeah.
and many women, it's every year they come.
When you say many, I've got no idea. Are we talking 100? Are we, you know, 200 or 300? What's
So generally about 400 to 500.
right? Yeah, that's I imagine Halifax. It's a bit like the Edinburgh Festival when that's suddenly inundated with, you know, theatre aficionados. You suddenly get 500 Anne Lister fans.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. And Halifax have been super welcoming, that they were suddenly besieged with, like 400 or 500 Americans, or like talking everything Ann Lister.
Do
Um,
anything dress up?
totally, yeah. There's a woman, Jill, I'm not sure of her surname, so I won't say it, but she wears 19th century costume all the time. She's often, you see her walking around Shibden, dressed as Ann Lister. Lots of women go to events, the Ann Lister events, dressed as Ann Lister. We have the birthday bash, which is actually on Anne's birthday. And many women come dressed as Ann Lister, and there's like a friendly little competition. And but this event, it is not just for women from abroad. It is for truly for like women in this country to come and enjoy it.
Mm.
To come, you don't need to come from abroad. You can
Yeah,
just come from just be local, or just come
local.
from where you are, for
Yeah.
example.
Do you think there was an upsurge after the Gentleman Jack series? And
Huge.
what are your thoughts about that? Is there anything else planned or films or anything?
All right, yeah. Many women came to Ann Lister through Gentleman Jack. Gentleman Jack was produced by the BBC and HBO, the American side. So it was going out to America as well as into the UK. And many Americans, first of all, watched it, and then they realized this was a real woman, and they were hooked. And then came to ALBW and ALF and met other women who are equally obsessed with Ann Lister and all things Ann Lister. So the things that, because although the second series, that finished a year or two ago, but things are still going. There's a film that is in the pipeline called Langton, and that features Isabella Norcliffe, who is Anne's second lover. And there's also currently, as we speak, a ballet, Northern Ballet, doing a performance of Gentleman Jack, which is great. I've seen it.
Yes.
It's a really great performance. And that is on tour. And it's on tour for ages because I know that next year, next spring, it'll be up in Scotland. It'll be in Edinburgh. So but I think it's currently in London area. But
Mm.
that is constantly bringing Anne Lister
Mm.
to more and more people, more and more audience, because people need to know about this woman.
Mm. So I was lucky enough to be at the opening night of the ballet, and I used to teach ballet. I mean, I'm a real ballet fan, but
Oh,
I was
right.
completely blown away by it. And more than anything, the two things that I took from it at the very end, when she just stands on stage and she's just there in the frame, she'd been living for us during the ballet, and then she's just there, and the embodiment of her through that dancer I thought was wonderful. But the sensuality throughout was remarkable. I don't know that it ever really got conveyed properly in the film. I mean, it was telly, wasn't it? You had to do it this way and that. But that beautiful sapphic sensuality was so
Yeah,
beautifully expressed through dance. Very, very erotic and in an acceptable way. And I think for anybody that doesn't understand love between women, and I kept looking around the audience thinking, are these all lesbians here? And of course they weren't. It was largely a straight audience, but it felt like there was some proper sharing of the beauty that there can be. I mean, it didn't hold back, did it? There were arguments and all sorts in it. Yeah, I would heartily recommend it, and I hope it carries on.
really good.
Anyway, enough of other people. Let's hear about your work. Tell us about your own work. I mean, you've mentioned that there's a book being published, your book being published, and also that you've got a pamphlet at the moment that's already.
I have. Well, actually, I did two pamphlets. The first one was a limited edition, and this was the second one. This one here, and
All right.
this one this one's for sale at Chibden. And so there's 26 poems in this one, and there's dramatic monologues. So if I could explain how this is all working,
Yeah.
because one of the things I felt very keen and really, I don't know, it was really a key thing about this whole piece of work was that we have Anne's diaries, we have Anne's view, but we did not have the words or the view of all her lovers. And I mean, now we've got, as you say, we've got Gentleman Jack, and we've had Isabella and Anne Walker and Mariana that have appeared in that.
Mm.
But Anne had 14 different lovers, and they need a voice. And I felt really, really strongly that, we're all heroes of our own story. And these women, they are an intrinsic part of Anne's story. It's not just Anne's story. This is Anne and her lovers' story, because without her lovers, wouldn't be the story. So this was a key thing because I felt they were silent, and I remember thinking, enough is enough. No, I'm having you speak. And so with this, there's also a narrator that runs through. The narrator fills in the gaps. She has her own mind and her own opinion. And so anyway, so this one here, this that I've just opened here. So I've got Mariana, 1815, and Anne, 1815. And this one is when Mariana is talking about she has to get married, and this is Anne's response to it. And so they're written in either like a response, or both of them having a view of something on the same event or different events. Which one's this? Oh, this is Frances Pickford. So Frances Pickford, when they call Anne Lister like the first modern lesbian, like Frances Pickford, there were thousands, of course there were lesbians around. With, lesbians are born, they're not made, So it's Frances Pickford was like Anne, from quite a wealthy family. Anne wasn't from a really wealthy family. She was the niece of her uncle and aunt, and that who owned Shibden. Anne wasn't a direct heir. Her two brothers died, and that's how she got to be having Shibden. But this is Frances Pickford Frances Pickford looked very much like Anne. She looked like a butch lesbian. And she was at this point with Miss Threlfall. She had a female companion. Miss Threlfall died in India. And then Frances had another female companion. And Anne spoke of like, Anne was, I'm not sure which country she was in, but she was abroad. And she bumped into Frances Pickford, who was also touring, you know,
Yeah.
doing a grand tour. And so there were women, there always have been women like Anne. But this is how the book is written, and it's in these dramatic monologues. The full-length collection has 55 poems. It has an extra thing, which I'm not saying, but it does have a key big extra thing in it.
Right.
And yeah, it's taken me 6 years to do it because it's I wanted to be really true to this story.
Yeah.
And that meant that I would be doing loads and loads and loads of research. And for example, I would, so if I was writing about Frances Pickford, I'd probably do between 20 and 30 pages of A4 notes, everything I could find about her,
Yeah.
and then hone it down to one tiny bit. But I felt that if I was going to write about real women and use their voices, I said to myself, Christine, you better get it right.
Yeah.
Because these are real women. And absolutely, I honor them and to make it as true as I believe it is. So it was a lot of research, real events, real women, things that happened. And also there's quotes of Anne's just embedded throughout.
What's wonderful about it, I mean, I think it's a really unique angle to have said, I want to give Anne's lovers a voice that who have been silent because they are
Yes,
always the bit part, aren't they?
aren't they?
And so really what you've brought forward for us is, like you say, 50 odd poems or whatever, but a whole load of other lesbians. They might not
Mm.
have been using the word, but obviously they were in a relationship with another woman. And that's great because it fills a picture out. Um, I think it's wonderful what you've done. I can't wait to read about them actually. Because as you say, you did say to me at one point, obviously her lovers were lesbian too. And
Yeah.
Mrs. Priestley had something to say about that, didn't she?
Oh yeah, Mrs. Priestley, who was she was a relative of Anne Walker's, but she was within that circle that, women would just, you'd go and call on and go and visit, etc., go and have tea with. Mrs. Priestley said, famously, she said, no woman is safe with Miss Lister in the room.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's just like Anne's complete charm. Women were bowled over with Anne, like completely bowled over, because Anne was, um, she was, she was very, very flattering, and she would be very exciting. She
Yeah.
wasn't. If you were like having to live in the 1800s, in the early 19th century, and be expected sort of like to follow the constraints and the norms. No, she was a bit wild.
Yeah.
She was a bit wild and a bit crazy, and it's like, wow.
I love
Um,
that because that is often very much the case for us now as lesbians that if you want to fit in, you're desperately trying to read what the social mores are, but they aren't natural to you. You to talk too loudly or to sit and take up space. I mean, all of these things are they're the same thing she was doing, but we haven't got to wear the frock, have we?
exactly, and she really was. She did speak to lad. I mean, Mariana. Um, she told Anne. This was at the point we called the three steps. But Mariana told Anne that she was ashamed of Anne that, you know, she literally spoke too loud, and you know, she was an embarrassment.
Embarrassment, yeah, yeah. I really relate to that. I've had that same thing said, and it's like, well, if you can't handle it, get off then. Anyway, back to that, you mentioned the three steps.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
you were talking about the excitement at some point of writing a poem or reading a poem. Was it in the very same place that it had happened?
Yes, yes. So, as a poet, I'm a performance poet. So I never sit and read my poems like this. I never do. I'm I'm always read them. I don't have the book or the words, and I perform it because I like to put breath into the words. And I'm also doing dramatic monologues, so we can use lots of energy
Yeah.
within that and really bring the words to life. So I did videoing at Shibden. So while Shibden was closed, Lynn Grady, who's the manager of Shibden, she really kindly said I could go and video in there. So I was trotting around videoing, and I think I managed to get, I don't know, 10 or 11 videos, which was quite exhausting to do, actually, one after another. But also I've done them on location. And the three steps, this happened when Mariana was going up to Scarborough. She'd said to Anne, let's meet in Halifax. Anne said yes, of course. But Anne woke up and she was so excited. She was like super, super excited. Couldn't wait, couldn't wait. And so she decided to walk, and she walked from Shibden and decided to meet Mariana's coach. She did, it was drizzly rain, and she did it in, I don't know, it was like over 10 miles in 3 hours. It was like she walked at a really fast pace.
Yeah.
And so Anne was walking across the top of the moors. She saw Mariana's coach coming down around the corner, and Anne bombed down the hill. And instead of, like, as a coach started to stop, Anne jumped on, and she leapt on, and she tripped over all these boxes and baggages, and she fell in front of Mariana, who was now Mrs. Charles Lawton of Lawton Hall. So Mariana was very, very full and aware of her status in society. And she literally fell in front of Mariana, covered in mud, and said, and Mariana's sister Lou, and she said, I've just walked all the way from Shibden. And Mariana was horrified. And that's when she said she was very ashamed of Anne. But where this was, so Anne was able to, in her diary, she says exactly where it is. So I went there, and I was stood where it all happened, which was amazing. It was amazing doing these poems in this actual spot, and just
That's just, it sounds amazing. I mean, when we finish the interview, it'd be really nice if you feel able to just read us one of them. You
would
know,
you like me to do it now?
well, why not? Since we're here and we'll pick
We're
up.
here, we're
Yes,
here. But I'm going to actually, having said that, I don't read. I've got the book in front of
yeah,
me, so that
obviously, yeah,
otherwise I would do it. I would just do it as performance, right? So this first one. So there's two poems. The poems are always in pairs,
yeah.
and I like to use form. So I've got Mariana far end, all very straight, and Anne falling apart at the very end, at the side of the page.
Right.
Right. Okay. Mariana, August 19th, 1823. 1, 2, 3, too many. Dreams tumbled in glorious colours, sapphire, jade, silver, in rather tempest seas, when there she was, tossed in from that sea. And all I could think was, how pleased I felt that dearest friend Miss Patterson was not here, and how could she talk so fast, so free, wet lips wobbling, spit, east, west, all between. So I had to remind her the cost of my discovery, our deceit which does no harm, her lacking in grace here, too deep a voice there, the things that repel me. And will she now adjust her walk, remove facial hair, and see how much I care? And response. Anne, August the 19th, 1823. The 3 steps. Her glare seared my face hotter than a branding iron sizzling into flesh. Such was M's shame as I tripped 3 steps, all at once, leapt, straddled, curtsy, bowed, all at once over boxes, baggages, lips steamrolling, mud spilling, all at once. How far, how fast I'd flown. Ardent words ricocheting like ravenous ravens that won't wait. They were late, the suspense too much. My 3 steps, her shame, massacred us. And did I tell you? M didn't notice. Her poison arrow struck my breast with the force of a huge iceberg, and I watched M's heart shrink in shame of me. Sorcerer, dealer in false words. So those that was what happened. That was what happened, like that contrast between the two. And Mariana thinking she was being nice, but telling Anne was sat in the carriage.
Yeah.
And Anne, she was saying to her directly, I'm ashamed of you. You shamed me.
That's very powerfully written. Beautiful. Thank you.
Welcome.
So yeah, picking up from Anne with her energy and that wonderful tumbling, you can just feel it, all out of the box. Was a phenomenal woman and an inspiration to women all over the world.
Yeah.
And just stepping aside from the lesbian Anne, I mean,
Yes.
or the aspects of a life that were about being a lesbian. Tell us a bit about the mountaineering.
You see, Anne doesn't just inspire women because she was a woman who lived her own life and was true to herself. And the fact she was a woman very much in a man's world, running the estate of Shibden Hall and coal mines, etc. But Anne was a phenomenal explorer and mountaineer. And she was the first woman to scale Mont Perdu, which is the 3rd highest in the Pyrenees, the first woman to do that. But being Anne Lister, this was not enough. Right? So she then wanted to scale Mont Vigimal, which is on the French-Spanish border. And the Spanish side had been, that had been scaled, but the French side was deemed as inaccessible. And her guide from Mont Perdu said to her, I think I know a way up. Like, I think I know a way up. Now, as what was also happening at this time was there was another mountaineer, Napoleon Joseph Ney, Count of Moscova, Prince of Moscova. I'll get it right, Prince of Moscova. He decided he was also going to scale it, and Anne was waiting for good weather. She got the information he was on his way, and it was, we go now. Regardless of weather, we go now. So she went and she scaled this mountain. And because of YouTube, I've been up and down this mountain several times. Not physically, but I have sat and watched it, gone up and down. And there's some amazing video. And one was a silent one from about they look like 1940s, 1950s from their clothes. It was called The King's Family. and it was like this family or the king family that doing, and they scaled it. But it was that was the earliest I found. So this mountain, you sort of like you have to obviously go up, and then you go to a point which is like where the shepherd's hut is, and she slept for a few hours there, and they set off very early, like 3 a.m. They set off. And as you go up, the things that you cross, apart from it being like unscaled, there was no route. Her guide was hoping he'd got it right, but they came across then a glacier. And the glacier, if that's a mountain, the glacier went straight across, like so, right across the mountain, and Anne had to cross it. And this is just wearing hobnail boots, a wool skirt which she put like little straps inside and lifted them up so that they were like, I suppose, about knee up to her knees. But she'd literally got boots which nails put in, and she had an ice pick. And she crossed this glacier, and like nobody crossed this. Like you could just have easily just put and gone straight down into a crevice, a slip, and you can't stop. You go, and but she scaled that, which I just think that would have been terrifying. But nope, she keeps going, and then after that, immediately after, there's his rocks, and it's like this. And she went up that as well until she got to the very top peak. She got to the top peak. She took a little bottle and put Miss Lister Shibden Hall and created a little cairn, is it? Where they like, stones together. And she put that and came down. The Prince of Muscova challenged it. He challenged it. I think he took the bottle, but he challenged it and said he was first. And Anne, being Anne, was not going to let that pass. She then went to magistrates and proved that she was the first to scale it, which is very typical of Anne. Yes, she will jolly well be,
I'm
sort
not
of
having that.
recognized.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But she would do these walks, scale these mountains on. She wouldn't eat or drink. She would constantly be sick. She would pass out. Coming down, she would collapse and things like that.
Yeah, altitude sickness and the lot. Yeah.
The
Well,
whole lot.
I hope she's as well known in the mountaineering community as she is elsewhere, because that is remarkable. I mean, I wondered, what did she think of herself? What did you glean from all that you've read and immersed yourself? How did she regard herself? And what sense did she make of it? Did she know she was different?
She definitely knew she was different. She used to say, like, I'm odd, very odd. And she would say, there's none like me. And when Anne was alive, and her dates are 1791 to 1840, it was very much a Christian country. And she said, like, I am as God made me. God made me like this. So she was very aware she was different, but she accepted it. And I mean, when she says she was different, she did look sort of more, she was mistaken for a man a lot, quite a lot. She never identified as a man, ever. And with her diaries, something nearly fell. Stop that again. Let me go back a bit.
I quite like that after the mountain bit. I think we'll leave that.
Okay. Falling off the mountain. Whoops. Um, uh, but but yes, the women, and was had women like really keen to be with her, and they accepted, and they were
Yeah.
equally lesbian. But yeah, she did feel that she was odd, but she was as God made her. And as I was saying, like she she didn't look anything like Saran Jones. I mean, she did have facial hair, which Mariana objected to. But she just accepted herself as she was.
Mm.
This was a woman who had high levels of intellect. She taught herself Greek, and a couple of languages, but she also arithmetic. She was a very intelligent woman,
Yeah.
and also her general knowledge on the natural world, etc., was huge.
Yeah, we need her on the pub quiz, don't we, really?
She would be
She'd have
brilliant.
won. So how do you know what she looked like? Are the paintings then?
Right. So there's one painting which in here. This one. This one. Yeah. This
Yeah.
is the one that was done after her death, and it was done by an artist who knew her, but it was done after her death. And I think it's reasonably lifelike. At Shibton Hall, there are images. There's a drawing. She only had like a couple of drawings because sadly, was dying in 1840. Photography literally just started off in
All right.
1840.
Yeah.
Like if she'd lived another 10 years, we would have had photographs.
Yeah.
But that is as it is. But there is a drawing of her, and she says that this drawing she'd shown her aunt and uncle, and she went back and then took the woman to do a bit more on it and brought it back, and she said, "Yes, it looks like me."
Mm.
And she does not look like Saran Jones.
Well,
She didn't at all look anything like Saran Jones, but she was probably not the most attractive woman physically, but I think her energy and her charisma absolutely floored women.
yeah, and her intellect as well. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
So, I mean, that's a really wonderful, in-depth information there, Christine, and it's great that you've dedicated yourself to all this, and I look forward to reading your work, which I will get hold of. Are you online? Can women
Uh,
find
yes, yes,
work?
yes. So I'm on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and I'm under Christine Sanders Poet. So you can see my Anne Lister poems, the ones in the house,
Yeah,
in Anne's house. There are also some non-Anne Lister poems because I've done some non-Anne Lister
obviously
poems.
you have another world as well. Yeah. So,
But
and then to finish off with, what is her relevance to lesbians today?
Anne Lister 100% inspires women. She just inspires women because if you think like, okay, I mean, for all that we say of her, Anne was just a woman in the way that a human being. She was a mortal human being, and yet she let nothing stop her. If she wanted to go and do something, she went and did it. And even if it's climbing a mountain, which has not been accessed before, and crossing a glacier which no one has stood on, and all you've got are boots with little nails in them,
Yeah.
it's like, she just inspires you. Like, okay, if Anne could do this, I can do it.
Well, that's great. So let's hope that you can join us for part of the weekend. It'd be lovely for women to meet you.
It'd be
Um,
great too.
yeah, and thank you very much, Christine.
No, thank you. I have really enjoyed talking about Anlista and chatting with you again. Thank you so
Great.
much for this opportunity.
You're very welcome. Bye bye.
Right, bye bye.